Hello again team, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin and welcome back for my week 27 plan with me. In today's video I'm going to be setting up for the week of the 1st through to the 7th of July. But before we get into that, as per usual, we're going to have a look at how this week was going. So those of you with keen observation skills can probably tell that this is not this week's weekly spread. This is back from the 9th through to the 12th. Since then, I've not been feeling the greatest. As you'll remember, last week I didn't make a video at this time because I was quite unwell. So the spreads I have since this one are not finished. Kind of finished, but not really. Not finished. And then when we got to this week, I decided, after having my time off because I was unwell, I really just needed to get back into the swing of things and I needed to use all of this space to write down things I needed to do. So you can see here on Tuesday I wrote myself a little note just saying, need to catch up on things, so using these daily lists for a brain dump. And then from there I just wrote myself pretty much anything that I could think of that I needed to get done. You can see that a few of these are checked off, which is nice, but there are still quite a few open tasks that I need to complete. Admittedly, not all of these things are going to be finished by the end of the week. I'm already aware of that. But there's things that are weighing on my mind, and I just wanted to get everything out onto paper. As you'll know from my past few videos, for July I'm starting in a new Dingbats journal. So it's time to close up my scribbles that matter, and grab that one now. Before we jump into the setup, as you may also remember from a couple of my last videos, for the next few weeks, I'm going to be completing my weekly layouts following some kind of a restriction. I'm calling these my weekly challenges, and you can see I have 5 weeks planned out so far. So for today's setup, I'm going to be using only one pen, and I've decided to make that, let's see if you can guess. Of course, my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen, this time in the S size. I'm going to be using this pen to do the entire of my weekly setup this week, whereas next week I'm planning on doing a washi only weekly. The week after that is going to be stickers only, and then the week after that is going to be a 5-minute weekly spread. I do have a couple of other ideas that I'm going to put down on here eventually. I'm just not sure what order I want to put them in. But once I know, I'll let you guys know, so you can do them too if you wanted to. I've already put in some pencil lines for myself, so I know where to put all of my boxes. So now I'm just going to jump in with my Pitt Artist pen and draw everything up. For this week's setup, I've decided that I wanted to make line work the main decoration. The simplest and most visually effective method of line work decoration that I know are Zentangles. So I'm filling in all of the space around my boxes with this simple alternating line pattern. Essentially what it is a checkerboard style, where every second box contains 3 vertical lines, and every other box contains 3 horizontal lines. I also really love playing with negative space, so instead of drawing out the boxes for each element on the page, I'm using my pencil guides to show myself where to stop my Zentangle pattern. As usual, today I'll be answering the questions left on my last weekly Plan With Me video. Before we jump into these, just a big thank you to all of you who ask questions. I really love being able to give you guys the answers and information you're looking for, and in general, I just like getting to share more about myself with you. If you have a question for next week's Plan With Me, please do leave it in the comments below. Our first question for today comes from Purani, who asks, do you have any tips for fixing mistakes in your bullet journal? That topic is actually what one of my first videos on this channel was about, so if you hadn't seen that one, there is a link to that in the cards above. Disclaimer, as it was one of my first videos, it's one of the ones that contains that older background music, so please do not judge me. I have 2 main favourite mistake correction techniques. The first one would be my Uniball Signo white gel pen, because a lot of the time the mistakes I make are easy enough to fix just by using that pen as whiteout and going over it. I find the ink in that one to be thick enough to block out most mistakes, but the nib is also small enough that you have good control over where you do and don't put the ink down, unlike a lot of actual whiteout products. My second favourite correction method is a little bit of a cop-out, but it's actually just leaving the mistake there. I find a lot of the time that I go to correct a mistake, I actually just end up making them a lot more noticeable, so instead of drawing attention to the mistakes, I just leave them in. This one I use especially when I spell things wrong in my daily checklists, which happens a lot. Some of the other ways to correct mistakes would just involve covering over them, so using stickers or washi, or possibly some spare paper from the back of your journal. You could also go over the mistake with a black pen and then write over it with a white gel pen. Our next two questions come from Taryn and Daphne, who asked, where do you get your ideas for your journal theme decorations? Who do you follow or look up to in the bullet journaling world? And do you ever flip back to your old journals for inspiration, or do you usually look online for ideas? I figured I'd answer these two together as they're about similar things, but I do occasionally look back into my old journals for weekly layout inspiration. Though most of the spreads that I've made, I have a pretty good memory for what they looked like and which elements went where. As a side note, I will be having one of my weekly challenges as a recreate an old weekly spread, or a recreate your first weekly spread, or something like that. Most of the ideas I get for my bullet journal layouts either come from Instagram or Pinterest, or sometimes from having a need for specific sections on my weekly layouts during any given week. For my monthly themes, I get these ideas from a similar place, but I also do get some really good suggestions from you guys. I'm always really appreciative of when you guys give me ideas. In terms of the people I look up to the most in the bullet journaling world, number one for sure would have to be Cindy of Llamas Love Lettering. I also really love Kayla from Planning with Kay, Erin of Erin Floto Designs, and Miss McKenna's Life Leverage as well. As you can see, I've finished the leftmost page of this weekly layout, and I have two main boxes, one for a sort of page title, and the other for the events I have next week. I've split the events box into two columns, one for work and one for personal. On the right hand page, I'm going to have three boxes, one for a long running to-do list, one for notes, and then the one in the top left for the next steps in my level 10 life. I did a similar thing to this on a weekly I had back in January, and wanted to bring it back for next week. Our technically fourth question comes from Madhu, who asks, what do you write on your monthly log? I personally like to reserve my monthly log just for events. I do sometimes include a section for notes or a to-do list, but the calendar or vertical monthly log itself is just for events. At least for me. I like to be able to have a space that's just dedicated for the things I have going on, rather than the things I have to get done. I do record my YouTube video schedule on my monthly log though, because I mean a video release is kind of like an event, yeah? I also include my school meetings, any appointments, and my social events. I've also recently started including budgeting as an event on my monthly log because I was finding it wasn't really getting done, and that was starting to become an issue. There we have it, my one pen weekly spread. What I'm going to do now is just go in and write down the events that I know I have coming up next week. As I fill this in, I'd like to throw back to Taryn's question. Who in our bullet journaling community inspires you, or who do you look up to the most? As I mentioned, Cindy is my all-time favourite, but I really love discovering new journalists as well. Leave the ones you love in the comments below so we can all check them out too. Thanks for watching. If you liked today's video, feel free to go check out another one. Until next time, bye!